Truth Frequency Radio Network. K-TFRN. Worldwide.
Hola, this is Sienna inviting you to join me tonight as we navigate through the seen and the unseen, explore external and internal realities, expose on-world and off-world agendas, discover a path to joy and freedom. Now, join me as we illuminate the Shadowland and reclaim our birthright as free and sovereign beings. Good evening, everyone. This is Sienna, and this is episode 18 of Illuminating the Shadowland, Red Hot and Holy, with Sera Beak, a Heretic's love story. Good evening, Sara.
Good evening.
I am so delighted to have you on the show. I wanted to start out with a bit of an introduction, a quote from Chris Carr, a filmmaker and author. Sera Beak is the brightest light in the next generation of red-hot spiritual activists. She breaks rules and smashes stigmas in order to wake up and ignite the deepest part of our divine selves. Sara is an author, a mentor, and a revolutionary, a brave and beautiful young woman who walked away from fame and fortune to express her brand of authentic, divine femininity. She's a trailblazer of divine human authenticity, a light for women seeking to reconnect with the true divine feminine. And I am really honored to have you on the show. I know you're involved in a huge move tonight, so I super thank you for taking the time to be on Illuminating the Shadowland.
No, thank you for having me. I so appreciate and really respect what you're doing and what you're creating for all of us. So it's an honor to be here.
I'm going to jump right in here with a first question for you, Sara. You're a very unusual woman to walk away from fame and fortune. Can you share with us here at Truth Frequency what happened, what your background was, what you were being offered, and also why you abandoned all of that for the path that you are now on?
Yeah,
I kind of a super gigantic question. Yeah, just take the next 4 hours. It's fine.
I like it. We'll just go right in. It's great. In 2006, my first book came out, and that book led to just different talks and invitations and different opportunities. And over the years, those opportunities just grew, and I was going kind of naturally, but also being pushed in the direction to kind of just be a new sort of sassy spiritual spokesperson for the mainstream spiritual arena. And that just felt like that was the direction I was supposed to be going in. I thought I was, doing my divine service by doing that and by continuing my work with women's spirituality just in a more mainstream way. And in 2009, I had the honor of interviewing the Jungian analyst Marion Woodman for a documentary film I was creating, and she really shook me awake, and she didn't do anything. She just was herself, but sitting there across from her when I started interviewing her, I had the realization just on a body level that this woman had truly and authentically embodied her soul, and I definitely had not. And so the differences between us just really shook me awake, and that led to just a time period for me, and it lasted about 4 years of just really going inwards. And there was this time within that first year where there was sort of this surge of career success that happened. I was on the cover of the New York Times Sunday Style section with 3 other colleagues. They were calling us like the new role models for our generation. There was a lot of commercial offers, and there's just a bunch of things going on that really were pushing for my success. And I just knew, kind of thanks to Marion and thanks to another man named Andrew Harvey, who kind of came in to just shake me up a little bit, that I could not be of service to the degree that I needed to be here unless I really did the work to integrate and embody my soul. So that required that I knew I needed to pull back from everything. So I pulled back from about 95% of my personal and professional life and went into what I labeled the red tent, which was a spiritual and physical cocoon. And that lasted about 3.5 years. And I just, like your show knows, and just the name of your show, it was just a lot of intense, multi-dimensional and psychological shadow work that I went through. And it was, the process is still going on. It was in that time period that I started to write Red, Hot, and Holy. But it's an ongoing process, but I have sort of stepped out a little bit more into the public again because of this book, in just order to sort of make sure she's able to stand on her own 2 little toddler legs. So that's sort of the backbone of it, but there's plenty of juice that we can go into if you would like. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you studied at Harvard, correct?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I mean, you were really in the mainstream and with huge dedication, and super successful, and so I mean that's a big deal to just walk away from all of that because you were called to something deeper, and I really admire that, Sara. I would like to dive a bit deeper into it. What did you choose to live through? I mean, in that process of breaking, what I'm calling mind control, because they were pruning you or preparing you for being one of their darlings, right? With the poster girl for the new divine feminine energy that which was basically you were still very much in, shall I say, a role or I guess a false identity that did not really embody the authentic energy that you're now reaching for. And by the way, I super appreciate you saying it's an ongoing process. I mean, it's certainly an ongoing process for me and any authentic person, and I'm thoroughly comfortable with that transparency that we're all going through it. That's the human journey, is to take off the mask and to recognize what the mask even is. And I'm very interested, first of all, in your take on what they are doing out there in the matrix, or the artificial construct, to be more precise, with the divine feminine energy that you were being pruned to be the poster girl for. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us are seduced into that still,
Oh yeah. No, it's a fascinating phenomenon right now. I say pretty often, patriarchy, or, we can call it that false paradigm is now wearing a goddess costume. And I found that part of what I had to go through was a real dismantlement and a real coming to face my own. And I just use these labels of true and false, but for me it was like the false feminine, both the false feminine within me, the feminine that was manipulating, that was not plugged into the true feminine, but was actually plugged into a false feminine. It was a very particular and very strong energy, and it was an energy that actually dominates this planet. I mean, I think the false feminine is actually the thing that most people are familiar with. And so stepping away from the false feminine paradigm for me was a mind screw. Like, it was really intense because I didn't know really what was happening. I didn't totally trust it. I was looking out a lot and being like, but I thought I was serving the feminine. I thought, my whole point was to serve her. Everything I was doing was to serve the feminine. So there was a lot of confusion. I mean, I definitely did not go through this process easily, and I was pretty resistant to it because it didn't make sense to me. And so after I had to really look at my own false feminine shadow, I was able then to more easily recognize it in the mainstream and kind of just see what was happening. And I think that's when things got pretty intense and actually really isolating feeling, because it's kind of that time period I think we all go through it when we're doing this level of shadow work. All of a sudden you're like, everywhere I look is false. So where's the true? Where do I go? Or am I just going to disappear then? How is this going to work? Like, how do we hold the true and participate on this planet in a way that's effective when the false is so dominating? So it's a fascinating thing, and I have to say, like, my colleagues, like so many of the communities I was involved with before I went into the red tent, are still very steeped in this false feminine paradigm, and it's an awkward situation. Like, I don't really know. I'm kind of just sort of an outsider now, but at the same time, I recently gave a talk at a conference that had this potential. The conference, I wasn't sure if it was going to like go to the false feminine or be able to be kind of rectified by each of us by like calling forth the true feminine in each of us. I just didn't know, and I had to give this talk, and it was the amount of energetic resistance, both internal, just being scared of having to actually go and like directly talk about this false feminine to a bunch of women who are steeped in it. But the internal interference, but also the external energetic interference, was unlike anything that I have ever felt before, and I felt a lot of interference, but it was really intense. So it just made me have more respect for these paradigms and kind of what's going on right now inside each of us and outside of each of us.
Yeah, it's interesting because before the show tonight, I felt it coming in like gangbusters. And had to do a lot of, okay, this is our space now. We get to be this. It's coming in strong, but we don't have any structure for it because really the feminine has been dominated by patriarchal structures for thousands and thousands of years. And as you well know, the women that hold that pure connection have been burned at the stake, have been brutally tortured, had to watch their children be, raped and murdered. The kinds of traumas that are described in the holographs against the feminine. I had Max Deshoe on. She's a historian of that. Talk about some of that, and so these memories are so deeply embedded in us that to become vulnerable again to the beauty and the tenderness and the light of the feminine is just horrifying to women. And they will do anything to avoid it, and then all of these other things are being presented. But it is clear that the feminine is the redeemer of our time, that the feminine is to remake the world in love. And yet this is why I wanted you on the show, and I really commend your courage because I can feel the vulnerability and the tenderness of your spirit, the gentleness of your light, and yet you're being adamant about breaking through no matter how lost or confused or difficult it's been. And this is, so you are a trailblazer, a path cutter, making the way a little more gentle for the next women who are brave enough to follow in your footsteps. And I'm not trying to embolden your ego. I'm just saying this is what it takes. And I appreciate the honesty of your work, of your website, of everything that you're doing, because you keep on chiseling away to try to find a core of something that really is you. And it isn't easy. It isn't easy at all.
No, No, thank you.
I would really like to share your perspective about the falsification of the divine feminine, because you are seeing it out there. And just calling a spade, a lot of us cannot articulate this because we haven't really been thoroughly embedded in it as you have. So that we can, particularly around the New Age movement, there's a lot of goddess talk and tantra talk, and there's so much. How can it be disingenuous? What is the seduction? How is this getting falsified in this way?
Yeah, it's a huge question, and it's something I honestly don't have the full answer to, but I know that I keep inquiring about it. I know that I see it, and more than seeing it, it's a feeling, and I know this is true for all of us. I know we actually can feel when something isn't quite hitting the depths, it isn't quite coming from the authentic, true heart of the feminine, or the true body of the feminine. But because we've been so inundated with this more like a false layer of the feminine, it takes some disentangling. It takes some willingness to see. And this isn't judgment. This isn't people are doing the false and they're doing the true, and someone's wrong and someone's right. It's just this is a very sticky and very messy and very thorough paradigm, and it's very It's to begin to just question it, or begin to just even say, is there a true and a false feminine, or whatever labels feel comfortable for people. And if that is, I would like to start seeing that or feeling that, and then kind of watching her unwind it. Because for me, I know this process was, my own particular process was very much guided by the feminine and guided by my own greater being, and there's no way I could have done this through any other sort of external process, because it was so organic and it was so thorough. It was very meticulous. It was very elegant in kind of how it began to unfold for me. But at the same time, it was elegant. I wasn't so elegant in response to it, but I had to really, I had to really be, I had to go through my own, my own resistance to seeing this. And I think that's kind of one of the main things that we all have to go through, because it's very confusing. Because what I see happening, and kind of is that on one hand, there's a lot of beauty with this upsurge of the divine feminine that's been happening over the past, few decades, this huge upsurge, and the goddess movement and the women's movement, and that there's so much going on there. But it just kind of feels also like anytime there's that new rise in consciousness, the stuff that's sort of been covering it has to come to the surface first. And I feel like that's a little bit of what we're seeing, but because it's covering the true feminine, it has a potency that is very attractive, especially when the feminine has been so repressed forever on this planet. So when you see a tantra course that's come, be and find your hot, sexy, authentic sexual nature and your hot, sexy goddess, release her, that is something that women have been longing to feel and to experience that freedom. So there's a real honest attraction to this. There's a real honest seduction that's going on, because we haven't been allowed to be that or do that. But what I tend to see happening is that it stays at this particular level, and it doesn't encourage women to actually go deep into their personal relationship with the divine feminine. It doesn't take them deeper. And so it kind of keeps them all at this. It's almost like a cradle, but it's not like a creepy cradle. It's I can see them all kind of swinging back and forth, and they're all kind of reinforcing each other in this sort of feminine paradigm. But it doesn't allow them their feet to actually hit the ground of the feminine. It's just on an energetic take for me. And I see things very much relationally, so this could just be my perspective, but I know for me, I mean, I was like so attracted to the divine feminine since I was born. I studied her, I traveled, I did everything I could, and until I did the really deep, dark shadow work to actually uncover my hatred of her, my extreme like fear, my disgust of her, all of those feelings I actually had inside me that had developed over lifetimes.
Oh, yeah.
And also been impregnated, by outside sources. So it's like without going through all that, there was only so far I could get in my relationship with her. There was only so far I could be in an authentic, partnership with her. So I think that is definitely a process that I don't see being like encouraged as much. But more than this, it's like more in these particulars. It's like there's just this. I think George Cavasilas expresses like synthetic and organic. I've always used the term organic, but there is more of an organic feel to the true feminine, and there is something a little bit either like too sweet or too something with the false feminine, and I just think it's a body-based feeling.
Yeah. Well, that's how we know the truth or not. It is in the body that we understand, because these are different energetic fields. And it's true, from my experience working for many decades with women, the atrocities against women have been so horrific that they're very, very difficult to face. Women are tired of the pain. They want the goodies. It's true with any minority or any repressed race, that we are just so fed up with being held down that we just don't want to go back down in there. And so we're leaving a huge aspect of the real, the fecund, dark, the Kali, the deep, deep roots. And we have been conditioned to think it's dirty and disgusting, and we see the women who really hold feminine energy being put down, and either they're prostitutes or eccentrics, or it isn't an energy that has been integrated in society. It was cast out. It was the devil for 1,000 years or more. The devil, our sexuality, our sensuality, our psychicness, our deep knowing, our connection to the mother planet. And it was deeply, deeply hated. And the Inquisition was very, very clear about that. And so people learn to survive. Animals, the human animal learns to survive. The human planet learns to survive. So you adopt these attitudes of patriarchy, and then we normalize the abuse, we become the inner abuser, and there's the vast territory of our unclaimed feminine nature that is very, very damaged. It's been held in the prison. I love Andrew Harvey as well. He says, we talk about the feminine and it's all so wonderful, but here she is being dragged out of the dungeon where she's been duct taped and held in chains for thousands of years, and you'd set her free, and she is pissed, and she's full of rage and pain, and we need to love her and bring her in as a part of. And then we're going to have the balance and the clarity and the discernment to recognize what happened while she was gone, while she's been missing. And she's been missing for a very, very long time. So I do commend you. And it's so hard for us to find words and language for this, because they've just pruned it out, done a really brilliant job of making it that you can't even speak about it without feeling these pieces of you that are lost and missing. But tell us, we have 3 minutes until the break, and then another half-hour segment. What is the red revolution? Why red? What is this?
Red.
How can we join?
Well, that's part of what happened in the red tent. Is I kind of let go of the red revolution, making it a movement, for everyone else. It was really a name for my own soul's movement. that was coming towards its own freedom. But red is just a color and an energy through which my own being started revealing herself to me since I was a child through any medium in front of me, through my studies, through books, through love songs on the radio, through signs and symbols and dreams, and it just began to take on this formation that I would just started to call red. And I knew it was a she, and I knew it was related to the divine feminine, but different than the divine feminine in some sort of strange way. I couldn't put my name on, my finger on. And my book, Red, Hot, and Holy, is really my story with red, which at the end of the book, I really come to this crisis and understand that what I had been calling red my whole life was actually my own being. So it was a big change for me. And before I went into the red tent, my whole career, was about red, and it was about, having other people in the red evolution. And I'm about to do a major rehaul on my website, because coming out of it, I'm really I'm not as interested in getting people to to get to know my own greater being. I'm more interested in people getting to know their own distinct divinity. And so I find that I was projecting everything outwards. And now, since I've started the process of really reclaiming it and just sort of sinking into my own soul scan and my own being, that's what I'm the most interested in with other people, is just reminding them to create their own intimate and expressive relationship with their own distinct divinity. So red just happens to be the name, that I called my own being. So red is my soul expression. It's really like the color, if there is a color, the energy of my core essence. So other people have their own relationships with red, and that's great. That's mine.
We're going to break now. We'll be right back with Sera Beak, Red, Hot, and Holy. Beautiful, Sara. Thank you so much. Stay with us. We have another segment after the break. Welcome back, everyone. This is Sienna on Truth Frequency Radio Network, Illuminating the Shadowland, with my guest tonight, Sera Beak. Sara, I would love to read from your blog. And by the way, Sara, what is your website, and how do people get hold of you, and where do they purchase your book?
Sure. My website is serabeak.com, and it's spelled SERABEAK.com. And Red, Hot, and Holy is available on Amazon, or if you're in the States, it's also in bookstores.
Yeah, and I really recommend for the women out there, the young women that sense this, and just to be able to have the mirror of another sister that is taking this journey, it could be really, really strengthening. I just super recommend people purchasing your book. And I love the way you write. Can I read this? It's what you write on your blog about Mary Magdalene, I believe.
Oh, sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. She writes, "O lady who wore red better than any other, I celebrate your all today, your light, your dark, your humanity, your divinity, and most of all, your reality. I remember you then, and I witness you now, and you continue to blow my spiritual underpants off. You have refused to be contained, controlled, or capped, repressed, retained, or retired. You've sidestepped those in charge, erupting organically from the hearts of each and every one of us, demonstrating that true love is bigger than beliefs, traditions, scholarship, or theology. It resides on a frequency, a channel, a space of knowing that's both mystical and mundane. It's so refined, subtle and yet sword-like, that false naturally falls apart in its presence. In other words, Magdalene, your moves are undeniably badass. Your gifts goose us all, and your love, deep inhale, your love, deep exhale, offers this planet something to stand for and sink into. Thank you for your strength, your perseverance, your devotion to the whole truth, your radical, heartbreaking, life-affirming, belly-breathing, thigh-opening, wisely embodied presence that continually teaches me what my heart, soul, and vagina were truly created for. To know you is my soul's closest memory. To love you is my heart's greatest honor. Sara. That is so beautiful, Sara. I can't wait to read your book.
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote that for Mary Magdalene's feast day, but she plays a significant role in the book and in my life, like she does for so many women.
Yeah? So you say that your bigger self, greater self, has been trying to get your attention, or has gotten your attention your whole life? Yeah,
and I think this is true for all of us. I mean, I don't think I'm unique in this way. I just perhaps needed it to come a little bit more direct. So I think that's for some reason why she showed up more in the color or the energy of red. So I had something kind of to define her by. But she was this real mystery. I didn't know who she was or what she was, and she would kind of wink through different archetypes and different deities and different mediums like Kali and Sekhmet and Pele and Lilith and Eve and Mary Magdalene, and but at the same time, while each of those has a very particular presence, and I have a relationship with each of those archetypes and beings, I also could feel that what red was something distinct from that, related to intimately, but distinct from that. And it was this real sort of maddening quest, and this real frustrating question, because she grew into such a strong presence for me that, I would call her her. I would refer to her as the Red Lady, and I would call her her, and no one really knew who the hell I was talking about. And, quite honestly, neither did I. And I went through all the different possibilities, from Jungian archetypes to occult guardian angels to, ascended master. I went through all the different possibilities, and she never quite, again, she had similarities to all of those. She didn't quite feel like any of them. So it really took being in the Red Tent and kind of going through such an intense purging of really all of my spiritual beliefs. And, I had been studying spirituality and reading about it since I was a little girl. I was always fascinated, so I had a tremendous amount of information in my energy field. And part of the process in the Red Tent was really getting that cooked out, having it, letting go of it. And so I could begin to remember my own reality and my own being. And in order to get to that, there had to be that letting go, because there really was no one out there. It wasn't until I heard George Cavasilis, but before that I hadn't heard anyone talk about a distinct divine being or a sovereign being that wasn't from this universe, that came in and that's eternal. And that was my experience of my lady, but I always just thought it was nuts,
Yeah.
Because it breaks every single God paradigm on this planet, and just Buddha nature. I mean, it breaks everything. So it's not breaking, but it opens. I think it opens. It raises the ceiling on all of that. So yeah, so I had to kind of go through all that just to get closer to my own being, and it was really this intense love affair with this being called the Red Lady that I didn't realize till the end was actually my own being. So we've, like any intimate relationship, like, we've been through it. There's been baggage. There's been a lot of processing, a lot of intense work just to know her as me, and definitely, like, the external interference has been immense, because the Red Lady's presence on this planet has definitely, more often than not, been seen as evil, for sure. I mean, you just look at the color and the energy of red, which is the color and energy that she tends to show up in the most. And, it's everything from prostitution to the devil to evil to, like, anger to rage. Like, it brings up all this particular energy. So she's had a particularly, I think we all have, but I can only speak for my own being. But she's had a rough go here. So part of getting to know who she was again was having to actually re-experience and face the devastation of being human and being red on this planet.
Yeah, and let's not forget that while we were getting the bad rap, our energy is still at the core of the creation of all that is, because we're the feminine is the creatrix, is the energy that supports the divine masculine. It is the substance of the creation of everything. So while it was being demonized, it was also being vampirized and used, because patriarchy cannot exist without this energy. So as each woman owns that and claims that, I mean, we talk about revolution, it would be because they cannot survive without that energy. And when we stop giving it to them and reclaim it as our own, then the old will crumble faster, because, believe it or not, it is our energy that is supporting it. I mean, that's been my experience all along. So what you're doing is huge, is a huge act of revolution. And it's so amazing to me that our spiritual beliefs are the very thing that seem to be sabotaging us from the revolution, from making the leap in consciousness. And it is the probably strongest program. I mean, money is another religion in its own right, but how many billions of people will kill for their God, and have been? And yet, so it is incredibly brave and pioneering to venture into this new territory. And I mean, it's clear that you've been a mystic many times, and that you have a really deep and profound understanding of what doesn't work about all of it, and came in to really manifest your truth this time, regardless of whatever. I mean, even though your voice sounds very sweet and unassuming and, tender and sometimes tentative, I mean, I sense just this incredible resolve. I mean, you're doing this. No one's going to mess with you around that. It's not negotiable.
No, there's some part of me that's just like, this time it's happening. Like, it's on this time.
Right, and that's, yeah. And are you? I noticed on your website you said coming soon mentorships. Mm-hmm. And I was very interested in that. I think you would be fabulous at mentoring other women who are just perhaps embarking, or maybe have had similar visions and things and haven't put it all together. Is this something that's coming soon to a Sara near us, or?
Yeah, I think it is. Probably in early 2014. Because of this move, I'm going to be settling like the next month or two, just trying to get my place here. But it's new for me, because it feels it's a little edgy for me, only because I've been tucked away for a while, and so it's an interesting part to then start to actually address this more with directly, one-on-one with women. It does happen in some of the workshops that I've done, for sure, and it seems to kind of be going in this own very like natural direction, where just helping them, reminding them really their own distinct divinity and their embodiment of the divine feminine is just something that I can't help but see, and I can't help but feel nudged, to participate in somehow. How it's all going to look is still going to, we will see how it plays out. But I do know, that I'm definitely not alone in this process, and I also know that during my time in the red tent, I was sort of purposefully cocooned and kept away from external help just so I could really go in. However, it would have been, it's always good to just know that someone is there who has been through their own version of this sort of, mystical dark night of the soul, or whatever we want to call it, this, integration, this incarnation process, and to just know that we're not alone, that there's a huge movement coming on this planet from the inside out, and we're here together. And I think when we get that, something lifts. It doesn't take us off our particular path. It doesn't even necessarily make it that much easier, because the path is hard. It's just hard. But knowing there's other people who are walking, on their own paths next to you just makes it more doable, and you can't help but feel the love there, because we've all agreed to do this, So it's just remembering that just gives a sort of soul support that feels important. So I will see what it's going to actually look like. That's the name, I think, for right now is mentorship, but I will see if it changes in the next few months.
That's really interesting. I am currently involved in a project that I am going to be launching in a few days, and it's exactly what you're talking about. It's creating the support, the container of support, so that we can exit this artificial construct, and that we're held and by other people that are going through it. It doesn't mean that there's some perfect guru that has achieved, and you're the little neophyte that's going along on his or her path. As it's getting organized, all of us are like, we don't know what we're doing, but we do know what we're doing, but we don't, because
yeah.
You're creating the new. You're bringing in these new energetic templates. You're bringing in something that hasn't been here before. So it even takes more courage to step out and go, yeah, I can do this. Well, what are you doing? Well, I don't know, but I'm doing it.
Exactly. I know this is where all those kind of my old colleagues and like their marketing techniques, which I appreciate to some degree and don't resonate with in others. I just sort of drive them crazy when they're like, well, what should we call it, or what are the steps, or what are the things? And I'm like, you just can't, you can't go there, as you spoke to so well. It's such an organic, dynamic, in the moment process, and I just feel like the best I can do, and all of us, in our own ways are doing, is just like every day, it's just like listening and trying to, for me, just get clearer and clearer and clearer, and often to get clearer, I have to see what's in the way of that clarity. But with this in particular, it's like what happens for me is it's less feeling like something on the outside, or less feeling like it's a thing I need to do. And what's happening is just it's already happening naturally through my being. It's like when I'm with somebody, all of a sudden their greater being, or a form, not their entire greater being, but a form of their greater being shows up. And all of a sudden, their greater being is showing me the pieces that are in the way of that intimate relationship with the human personality self, and where those pieces, the missing links are, and where some of the external forces have, come in. Because most of us, as we talked about before, we have so many other things in our own personal energetic field that we don't even know what our own being feels like. We have no idea what that is. We don't have a body resonance with our own being until we start to actually know that our being exists. It is us and it's bigger than us. And also that there's other things that are in our space. And just to become comfortable enough to gently and respectfully move those things out of our space, which each of us has to do on our own. But then to have that natural experience of our own being is just, because everything for me has to go through that, has to go through the soul, has to go through our own being. Because if not, all these ideas, all these things we're all talking about, they can just sort of stay floating outside all of us. We can see the truth strands within them, but in order to actually integrate them into our own system, it has to go through our own being. So that's where I just find my natural, leaning. It's always been that, since I was a child. And, in my own life, my greatest journey has been the journey to my greater being. And through that journey, through my greater being, it's only intensified the intimacy between myself and the being of this universe. So my relationship with the divine feminine and with the divine masculine could only get so far if I wasn't going through my own greater being. And so that's part of what was going on during that red tent process, was a real, I had to know myself first in order to truly know this universe, in order to truly know another person, in order to truly start becoming capable of handling the love of this place and being able to offer, my own particular signature of it. So that's where I feel this mentorship, if that's what we call it, is just naturally leaning towards, because I find it like an extension of that just happening, right and left around me right now. So we shall see. Yeah.
No, that's really beautifully said. And when we sense the incredible emptiness that we've all been programmed to bear in the name of getting things done, or being respectful to authority, or believing in systems that have nothing to do with us other than ripping off our energy. And no, I find that with women especially, but everyone, there's this huge emptiness. The vacantness, the lack of authentic presence, and it's so vast that we tend to externalize and look out there for what we can ingest. And the whole program was needing a man, or needing a this, or needing a career, or needing a, and there is there is nothing that we need but ourselves. And this is breaking all the programming, really, what you're saying is breaking all the programming, and it's so thick out there that it really does take a mentorship, a community, a container, some friends who are on the same path to just resonate, so that you can that you're not getting so lambasted by this conditioning that all the goodies are in this artificial matrix, where which is an endless consuming beast that only creates more addiction, really, at the end of the day, and can't at all be fulfilling. But it's a pretty vast mechanism, and yet, the emperor has no clothes. There is no energy left, in my experience. And I want to ask you about this. The energy of the artificial construct is dwindling. It really has no chi, because it's violated life so many times that life has fled its domain. And I don't think we realize how incredibly potent we are as we really bring in our authentic energy. I think a whole new psychology is being born, a whole new aspect, healthy, dynamic, organic connection to all, that they are so frightened that we're going to actually manifest. And it feels so tentative, and we have so much less than programming that it's so hard for us to believe in ourselves. But we are what they are most afraid of. I see all of these scenarios. They're going to declare martial law. Now they're going to have a collapse. Now here comes World War III. And I think, if they do, it's going to be so premature ejaculation style. It's if they can get, or maybe they'll need Viagra just to even get it. All they know how to do is destroy, and they don't even have the energy to do that anymore. So we just need to remember that the patriarchy is done, and we have to stop believing in it so much. I mean, I have to do it too. I look at all of this information, and it's such a drama. My God, it's it's everywhere in your face. We're going to do this tomorrow. But
no, it's
true. But the real potency is in the Sera Beaks of the world, the red hot and holy ladies that are going to remake the world in love in a very authentic way, just as who they are. So, such a wonderful development that you are here amongst us. Oh, my goodness. So we have about 4 minutes or less. Tell them how to get hold of you again, and the book and everything, because I think that everybody should read your book. It should be the new Bible. I'm sorry. That's how I feel about it.
No, thank you. It's my website again is serabeak.com, and that's SERABEAK.com. And it's about to go through a little bit of changes with some of the information on it, that you can get like the gist and sort of the feel on the website. And I'm also on Facebook. I'm not the best with Facebook, but I am on Facebook. And if the book is definitely my sort of wild soul baby book. It's a real love child, and it's readable. It's still, I mean, the one thing about my greater being is like, it's funny, but it's got a lot of the real throughout, without a doubt. So it's actually not a difficult read. It's fairly entertaining, as anyone just being very honest about this journey. Any journey that's honest, I think, is entertaining in the true sense of entertainment. Not in the false sense, but just the true sense of this is what we're all doing right now, and this is just my particular story. And I really hope that by sharing it, it just reminds other people that they have every right, and it's really a gift to this planet if they share their own love story. It's what we're all here for. So this is just a little offering on that altar that I think we're all contributing to.
So that's how you see it, as a love story with your greater self, and that all the aspects of the feminine are within you. So you don't need to go through any of the archetypes of the past to access her. Is that right?
No. The Red Lady is my being, and she's intimately, a part of, and like I'm dressed in the matter of this universe, and like infused with its consciousness. So I'm made up of the divine masculine and the divine feminine of this universe, but my core essence, is what I call the Red Lady, or what I just call, these are just my own names for it, red. And so that's what this was about, and it's through her that's allowed me to be that much more intimate with life, but I had to go through my own being. Yeah.
So what kind of a reaction are you getting from humanity in regards to this? We have 1 minute to
surprising. Yeah, I mean, right now, I don't read my reviews, so I don't know, everything, obviously, but the emails and just different invitations to come and talk to people have been incredibly diverse, and I think that's been very fascinating. So the book is seeming to go to actually a broader audience than I expected by far, and so far it's being, at least what I'm getting through emails, it's being received well, but I'm sure there will be other things that I will be receiving as well, because it's a very unorthodox book. Yeah.
It's your time. Listen to that, ladies. It's our time. Be who you are, and tear the world up in the fire of your spirit. Thank you, Sara. You're magnificent.
No,
SeraBeak.com. This is Sienna Leah, Illuminating the Shadowland. Good night, everyone. Be yourselves.